Alright boys, welcome back to another video. Swaggy here. You can also find me over at Daily Colts. We actually got some news today. It's looking like the Colts are going to keep Shane Steichen for next season. They're going to keep Anthony Richardson, which was already reported. But in terms of general manager, it seems as if Chris Ballard's days are numbered. I mean, he's been with the Colts the last decade. He's only made the playoffs twice, hasn't won a division, and he's brought back the same roster practically every single season. The most surprising thing isn't the fact that Ballard's getting let go of to me, it's that the Colts are expected to let Shane Steichen actually pick as general manager, which is just mind-boggling to me. I don't know how he's done enough to be able to earn that privilege, but nonetheless, that's what the Colts are looking at right now. Things could obviously change. But with Mike Vrabel being available, I would have liked to see the Colts at least look into him, but it doesn't appear that they are. I did say that I think he'll end up with New England, but just looking at where Indianapolis is at, they're going to have some big decisions to make this offseason because clearly what they've been doing isn't working. They tried the approach of veteran quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Philip Rivers, even though they did make the playoffs with Rivers, they lost in the wild card. And then they drafted a quarterback for the first time since Andrew Luck, which was, 2012. They took Anthony Richardson with a fourth overall pick. He showed a lot of promise his rookie year, and then he took a massive step backwards in year two. My thing with Richardson is that he did deal with a lot of drops. The offensive line didn't play very well, but also he just does have to be better. I mean, there's got to be a standard that he's going to have to reach. The Colts did have a winning record with him, which we can't forget. Like the Colts, they lost to the Bills, they lost to the Vikings, they lost to the Jags, they lost to the Giants with Joe Flacco, and he turned the ball over a ton. He had two picks against the Giants. I get that Flacco was good overall against the Giants, but he still had two interceptions. He lost a fumble as well, so that's three turnovers. So the Colts, their run game took a step back too. It wasn't nearly as efficient as it was the previous week against Tennessee with Flacco out there just because he doesn't have any mobility. So this offseason is going to be huge for the Colts because if they fail once again, certainly Richardson will be gone. And then Steichen will be gone, and they'll have a GM. And if Steichen's picking the GM and they fail, what happens to that GM? You hire a GM for his first season. See, that's why this thing's confusing because I really don't have any faith in the Colts. This is the first time probably in my life I haven't had faith in this team. I believed in Wentz. I mean, remember when the Colts went on the road and beat the Cardinals, who were one of the best teams of football? I mean, that was a big win. All they had to do was win one of their last two games to make the playoffs. And then Matt Ryan, I like that trade as well to go get a veteran. That certainly was a fail. And Richardson, I wanted them to draft over Levis too, and any other player on the board. So I've believed in the Colts. I've liked what they've done, but right now I can't think of a reason for me to legitimately believe in this team just because they continue to disappoint. And there hasn't been enough from what I've seen to believe in the changes. I mean, Zaire Franklin, Shane Steichen, and Jonathan Taylor, DeForest Buckner. I've listened to all these guys talk, and I can tell that obviously they're devastated from the loss. But there hasn't been any accountability. The only guy that I've seen take any sort of accountability is Gus Bradley. If you guys haven't seen him, he's actually on the screen right there. If you guys haven't seen his press conference, I recommend you go and check that out because I thought he did a great job. I mean, he's certainly going to be losing his job. I would say Bradley's going to go. Unless Steichen decides to keep him, you never know. It could happen. But yeah, I do think Chris Ballard will be let go of, and it appears that all signs are pointing to that, which it's been long overdue. I mean, Ballard, he hasn't been, to me, the worst GM in the world, but he just hasn't been good. And the Colts just consistently have been a team that they're not at the bottom of the standings, but they're not at the top, either. They're in the middle of the pack, and that's the worst place to be because you don't go to the playoffs and then you pick 15th, for example, in the draft or 14th, and you could get a good player there, but you're not getting one of the upper echelon type of guys. So I would have rather have seen the Colts just completely suck this year versus to be 8-9. I can't imagine. Is there a worse record than 8-9? I mean, I'd rather the Colts go 8-9 than 0-17. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying because that's just a very, very scary place to be in. But in terms of just the team and the direction moving forward, at least some changes are going to be made. I mean, I'd rather Steichen pick his GM than Chris Ballard stay. Gus Bradley, be very interesting to see what happens with that. At least he did own up and say that it was on him, that performance against the Giants. Nobody else said that. I mean, I didn't see literally any other player say that, hey, look, I've got to make more plays and I've just got to hold myself to a higher standard. It's just, and Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed, I mean, I don't know if you guys follow their podcast, but they did say literally like days before the game that they love playing bad teams just so they can destroy them, and they were looking forward to the Giants. And then they gave up 45, the most the Giants have scored since 2015. The previous most that the Giants had scored was against, I guess, who? Against us. Remember Daniel Jones that year the Giants made the playoffs, the wild card, and beat the Vikings on the road. So, yeah, just being a Colts fan the past couple of days, I've actually improved. Like I've gotten better. I would say yesterday, Monday, the day after the game, I was still frustrated. But waking up on Tuesday, practically it was off of my mind. But I do want to be consistent making Colts videos as I am a Colts fan. And I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to post this on Swaggy, if I'm being honest. I don't really know. I've been posting all my videos on Swaggy, but just given the fact that we're right now, what are we, 7-9? 7-9 with one game left against the Jags. It's so frustrating, man. I mean, you had a chance to beat the Broncos, and of course that would have gave you the tiebreaker. And then the Colts didn't do that, and then they still had a chance if they just beat the Giants and Jags, and then the Chiefs beat the Broncos. But obviously, the Colts lost to the Giants, and the Chiefs are playing their backups against the Broncos anyway, so the Broncos are going to win. So the Colts wouldn't have made the playoffs, but if they just controlled their own destiny, then they would have made it because the Broncos still would have lost to the Bengals more than likely. I mean, who knows how things would have changed? But like, I'd imagine the Bengals still would have beat the Broncos, and then the Broncos lost to the Chargers. That would have stayed the same. So the Colts would have made the playoffs. But that's the thing about the Colts is they just don't take care of business, and when the stakes are at their highest, the Colts are at their lowest. In the past 3 years, the Colts have had a chance to just win a game, and against the Jags, they would have went to the playoffs, and then against the Giants, they would have had a chance in Week 18 to at least compete for it, and they just fell apart. They lost by 15 to the Jags, and then they lost. I don't know, was it 12 to the Giants or whatever? But Drew Lock, 5 touchdowns, man, perfect passer rating. Just the most Colts thing I've ever seen, guys. It's frustrating. But hopefully next year around the Colts can get this together. I just can't sit up here yet and say that this everything will be fine. The Colts will be in the playoffs next year. I do believe in Richardson. I mean, he hasn't shown me any reason not to believe, just given the fact that the Colts look a lot better with him out there. I know he has a lot of work to do, but he's got an entire offseason ahead of him to do that, to get on the same page as his receivers and his offensive line. And I just like Richardson. I think he's a competitor. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. And you talk to anyone who knows football, they'll tell you the same thing. Like Louis Riddick, for example, at ESPN's a firm, big believer in Richardson. So I like him, man. I like AR, and hopefully that the Colts next year can just put a plan in place to be able to help him reach his potential and his ceiling. But he's going to have to get it going because I understand that he is young. He's 22 years old. I mean, McCarthy and May, I believe, are the only younger quarterbacks in this league. But Richardson, he's still going to have to just be better. He had a really bad preseason, if you guys don't remember, and then regular season, obviously, some of the worst numbers we've seen.